I would like to preface this video with an apology for the fact that it is going to be rather lousy and not the quality of video that I would like to submit for a project. Nevertheless, it is my only option now at 1 o'clock in the morning. You might be a drug user. Okay, come on now, we go to Wheaton College. Who really uses anything but caffeine? Actually, many of us might. Think about it. Alcohol, nicotine, Adderall, and maybe occasionally cannabis float around campus. But none of those are that bad, right? I'm not here to argue whether we should or shouldn't inhale burnt plant matter, though when you put it that way it doesn't sound so hot, but rather to talk about another substance that behaves and functions similarly to cocaine in your brain. Think about it. You smell cookies that your mom has just made. You don't even have to see them, but you want them. They're sitting there on the cooling rack and you walk by, just one. No problem, right? But do you just stop at just one? Or does the whole dozen disappear? For some people, this is a real problem. For others, they have no problem stopping after one cookie. The more you eat, the more you want, and the less satisfying everything tastes. Why is this? You could be addicted to sugar, and you may not know it. I asked the question, how bad is refined sugar for you really? And the answer frightened me. First of all, consuming large quantities of sugar has terrible effects on your cardiovascular system. Excess sugar floats around your bloodstream, making you lethargic, and increases your risk of heart issues. Sugar intake appears to be associated with increased triglyceride levels, a known risk factor of coronary heart disease. So if you don't want to increase your risk of heart disease, pass on insert. I drew a diagram of a healthy artery with no plaque. Had to write this backwards. And as you eat more carbohydrates, over time, plaque builds up in your arteries, blocking the transportation of blood. The second and more disturbing reason that you should take sugar out of your diet is that it easily becomes an addiction. In your brain, there's an area called the nucleus accumbens, which is associated with the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with the feeling of pleasure. If you have heard of dopamine, it is probably in reference to hard drugs, working out, or maybe even romance. Dopamine in itself is a communication tool between neurons, or nerve cells, in your brain. The cells don't actually touch one another. They have a gap between them called a synapse. And the neurotransmitters, are like messengers between two cells. When you smoke a cigarette, dopamine is released, causing pleasure. Your body likes this and wants more of it. So later you'll smoke another cigarette. Over time, however, the dopamine receptors decrease in number, and it takes more and more of the substance to trigger the pleasure. Sugar does the same thing as nicotine, alcohol, cannabis, and even cocaine. I drew a picture. I didn't write these backwards. This is the end of one neuron, and this is the beginning of another neuron, and this is the gap, or the synapse. And these are the neurotransmitters, in this case dopamine. Over time, the receptacles here decrease in number, which means that more dopamine has to be released, and what causes the dopamine to be released is the amount of substance, in this case sugar. So it actually does work as an addiction. People get addicted to sugar. The last reason you should cut sugar out of your diet is that it fills you up momentarily but does not stabilize your metabolism and leads to a roller coaster pattern of hunger cravings. Some ways that you can sidestep unnecessary calories and carbohydrates is to avoid foods with any sort of artificial sweetener and cut out things like soda pop. Sorry, but your body has no idea what to do with aspartame, and so Diet Coke might actually be worse than regular Coke. Southerners, stop drinking sweet tea. As a substitute for dessert, you can also opt for fruit and practice tasting the natural sweetness in things. I encourage you to practice vigilance now because just like any other addiction, it only gets worse with time. Here's a picture that I appreciate a lot that compares a normal brain, a cocaine addict, and an obese person. This person is addicted to sugar in the same way that this person is addicted to cocaine. Neither of them have the same sorts of brain responses as a normal person. This area of your brain is the nucleus accumbens that's associated with pleasure. And this says, sugar is as addictive as cocaine. Thank you.